Today's sermon is going to require a little assistance from a number of volunteers. We may eventually have more people up here in the front than we have sitting out there where you are, but that'll be all right. So what I'm going to do with you today is what's known as what I call a narrated story. I'm going to tell you this story, but some of you are going to act it out as I tell it. Doesn't that sound like fun? It does. Say yes. Yes, I thought so. If I can just get this to open up. Okay, here we go. So, what I need, first of all, is I need several people who are willing to play a part. And these parts are going to go from the largest, well, let's start with the largest parts to the smallest parts. First of all, I need someone willing to be the blind man. Anyone? And doesn't have to be a blind man. We can just make it a woman if we need to do that. I need a blind person to come up. Someone to come up and play the part of the blind person. I need the blind woman's parents. 2 people. And again, I'm not worried about male or female. I just need 2 parents to come up. This is a small part. This is the smallest part. I need someone who's going to be Jesus. And then I need 2 to 4 people who are willing to be Pharisees. And then I need 3 to 5 people who are going to be the crowd that watches this go on. The story begins like this. Here's this poor blind woman just sitting here feeling, just feeling because you can't see. Right. And along comes Jesus. And Jesus sees this blind person, and he and his disciples talk about her for a little bit. And then Jesus decides to heal her. You begging?
Sure.
Good. Why not?
Well, that's all I can do.
Yeah? Okay. So Jesus decides to heal the blind woman and does so by spitting on the ground, mixing up some mud from the spit, and then placing it on the blind woman's eyes. And then says, do you know what he says? Go wash in the pool of Siloam.
Go wash in the pool of Siloam.
Oh, he's good. That was very, okay. So off she goes. And she finds the pool of Siloam, falls in. You know, some people are just made for the stage. And when she comes out,
Oh my God, I can see.
it's amazing.
It's amazing.
Right, it is amazing. And not only is she amazed, but the crowd. And then some of them start saying, I don't think it's the same guy. Some of them say,
I don't think it's the same person.
yeah. But others say,
Someone else.
and others say, yeah, okay. And they argue with themselves for a while. And then they decide the only thing they can do to solve this problem is to take the blind woman, and go see the Pharisees. So off they go. Parents, let's move you a little out of the way here. Okay. All right, Pharisees. Do you know who you are? You're holy, right? You're learned, you're educated, you're wise, you're well respected, you are revered. You got that? Okay. And the crowd comes up to you and says, this man was born blind. And they wonder if it's the same guy. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Pharisees want to know exactly what happened, right? Because you need to do an investigation here. So they hem and they haw. That's good. Good. Okay. Some of them think, wow, this is miraculous. And some of them think, this is a hoax.
This is a hoax.
Yeah. All right. All right. And so they can't figure this out. They've got a problem with it. And they finally say, well, to the blind man, what do you think happened here? Who was this Jesus? And the blind man says,
He was a holy man.
And now the hemming and the hawing grows in intensity.
Were you really blind, or were you begging to get money from people all this while?
I had never seen before in my life until I washed in that puddle at Siloam.
Oh, okay, got that? So now let me ask you, Pharisees, this Jesus, Is he a holy man? You got to think about this. Could someone do this without the power of God being in them?
I don't know. I want to see a double-blind crossover.
Okay. So here's their problem, you see. Jesus did this on the holy day, on the Sabbath day, on the day when they believed you are not supposed to do any work, not even healing work. So here's their question. How could someone do this if God's power wasn't in them? And if God's power was in them, why would they do it on the Sabbath day? You see the problem? Yeah. So they are not sure what to do about this, so they figure it's time to investigate further. Wouldn't you agree? And one of them comes up with the idea, let's bring in the parents.
Let's bring in the parents.
All right, here come the parents. Now, the parents here, come on over, right over further in here. They're nervous. They're ordinary people. They're not used to this kind of thing, right? You ever been before the Pharisees before?
No.
No, never. You've avoided this all of your life, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, okay. So the Pharisees ask you, is that your daughter? And you say,
Yes.
and they say, was she born blind? And you say,
Yes.
yes. And then they want to know,
How did it happen?
and you say,
It's a miracle.
no, you don't say it's a miracle because you are afraid of them. Look at them. They've got power. You know, these are important people, and if you say something they don't like, they could kick you out. They could excommunicate you. They could make you outsiders. And so your answer is, we don't know how it happened.
We don't know how it happened.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Ask her. She's also not.
All right, and then the parents decide they're getting out of town. They don't want to have any more to do with this, and off they go. And the crowd, where's the crowd?
Hold me up.
Oh, this is the crowd right here.
Yeah.
They've lost interest now in this, and they go home.
Oh, okay.
So now what we've got is the Pharisees and the blind man from this point on. And the Pharisees want to say this. They say,
Thank God, because we know this man is a sinner.
so in other words, they want you to say, give thanks to God, not to Jesus, because Jesus is a sinner. Okay? And you say, she really is blind. You say, I don't know if he was a sinner.
I don't know if he was a sinner.
I do know this.
I do know this.
I once was blind.
I once was blind, but now I see.
Okay, and this makes you guys angrier. You're getting more and more angry, okay? And so they say to you, okay, so you give them that. She really gets it. So they want to know once again. They ask her, how did you do it? All together they say, how did he do it?
How did he do it?
And you say, I already told you.
I already told you.
Do you want to be his disciples too?
Would you like to be his disciples too?
Oh, now they're really angry. You see this thing? They're really angry. And they say, oh, everybody up here is blind.
We are Moses' disciple. I can't see it.
They said, these guys, they say, we're Moses' disciples. We know where Moses came from, right?
Right.
But where'd this man Jesus come from? We don't know who this guy is. We're not going to become his disciples. So the blind man then, or the blind woman says, it's amazing.
It's amazing.
This person gives sight to the blind,
This person gives sight to the blind,
and you don't even know who he is.
and you don't even know who he is?
And these guys say,
Why, you little son of.
they start to insult her. Why, you little...
So-and-so.
Yes, exactly. The King James Version says, thou wert altogether born in sin. And you can guess what that means. So they tell him, go away and never come back.
Go away and never come back.
And off she goes. And then the Pharisees, they huddle together and they hem and haw a little bit more. But then Jesus, Jesus, you're not done yet. So, the blind man is wandering around, the blind woman, and she's probably a little perplexed and angry, wondering how her life could go so quickly from terrible to wonderful, back to terrible. Oh, she's good. This is great. But Jesus finds her and says to her, do you believe in the human one?
Do you what?
Yeah. Do you believe in the human one?
Do you believe in the human one?
And she says,
Yes, I would like to believe in the human one.
That's exactly what she said.
I already said it once.
Yes, that's right. And then says, tell me who it is.
Tell me who it is.
And Jesus says, it's me. Me. Yay. And she worships.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And then goes home happy. Meanwhile, Jesus is talking, and he says that he has come to give sight to the blind and take away sight from those who say they can see. And the Pharisees hear him say this, and that makes them even madder, and they want to know, are you saying we're blind?
Are you saying we're blind?
And Jesus says, if you were blind,
If you were blind,
you wouldn't be guilty.
you wouldn't be guilty.
But because you think you can see,
But because you think you can see,
you are guilty.
you are guilty.
I think we gotta get rid of you guys. We're standing up here and we're gonna tell a real true message.
And that's exactly what probably would happen. Thank you to our actors today. Oh, wait. Jesus, I need blind woman and Pharisees. I remember now. I want you to stay up here. Karen, you stay over there. Jesus, you can go sit down. Now, here's what is the point of all of this. Here they are. Here she is. This one is blind. We don't know previously about her spiritual condition. We know physically she's blind. She's in the darkness. She can't see. We know that much about her. Over here are people who not only presumably can see, we assume they can see, but we also know that they perceive and are believed to be people who are spiritually enlightened. They are standing in the light over here. They've studied all of their lives. They believe, they've worked hard to try to understand the faith, and they are people of great spiritual insight. Here's what happens, however. They begin in these two places. The next thing that happens is this. The blind man is healed, and the power, the blind woman, begins to change her. And she is now, at least physically, out of the darkness and into the light. And she begins to understand that something really quite remarkable and holy and beautiful has happened. And she starts to move out of the darkness. And the next thing that happens is they bring her to the religious authorities, and the religious authorities, who previously to this believe themselves to be enlightened, begin to have doubts. They begin to worry. They begin to have doubts. They have problems with this, and the source of the problem is that this healing was not in sync with what they believed about faith and religion. They thought one of the most important things was to carefully obey the religious traditions and laws, and Jesus appears to have broken one of those laws, and what Jesus has done by healing this man was unnecessary work on the Sabbath, and it opened up a debate between them about who could heal a blind man without God's power, and who, with God's power, would do it on the Sabbath. They just can't get past it, so they have doubts, and they move in those doubts out of the light and towards the darkness. And then the next step comes when the leaders ask, who do you think Jesus is? And she says, a holy man. and she moves closer to the light. She now understands that what has happened here is holy. Now, she actually says a prophet, but that's a better translation, a holy person, someone who speaks or acts for God. And these folks know all about the ancient prophets of the past, but they are not willing to concede that there might be somebody speaking for God to their own time. And so they resist that idea and take another step away from the light and towards the darkness. The man recognizes that the woman recognizes Jesus is not just someone off the street. There is something different. There is something different about that. So then they call in the parents as witnesses who do not want to answer the question. They don't want to say anything because they are afraid of the authorities. In a country where political power and religious power are the same thing, they are aware that their lives could be ruined by opposing these folks over here. They fear the authorities, and when people are afraid of you, it means you have taken another step into the darkness. Good. Now come a few rapid steps. The religious leaders say, give praise to God for the healing, not to Jesus. We know that Jesus is a sinner. And the blind woman says, whether a sinner or not, I don't know. I know that I was blind and now I can see. And then the Pharisees keep asking, how could this happen? How could this be? And she says, I already told you. Why do you keep asking? Do you want to be Jesus' disciples too? And they say, no. And they step back. They feel the pull of Jesus, but they can't give in to it. They can't let that happen. It would mean changing too much about their lives. So they give it up. They give up the light and stay in the dark. And then the blind person says, it's amazing that you can't figure this out. Here's someone that has the power to open a blind person's eyes and you don't even know who it is. And she takes another step forward into the light. And finally, when Jesus comes to her and says, do you believe in the human one, or the Son of Man, or the Messiah, or God's chosen one, the one that God sent to save us? Do you believe that God would send someone to save us? And she says,
I want to believe.
And then Jesus says, it's me, and she worships and steps fully into the light. And over here, the Pharisees finally, when they complain to Jesus about what he's teaching, Jesus says, you've given up the light. You've stepped into the darkness. See what happened? Thank you. Now you can be seated. Would you like me to get to the point? How about in just a couple of sentences, let me give you the point. It really isn't about where you are. It's about which way you are moving. And which way are you moving? Which way are you going? Are you just trying to stand still in one spot? Or are you moving towards the darkness? Or are you hearing God's call and moving towards the light? What are you doing? We can look at each other's lives and complain about each other because we are not where we should be, and I am not where I should be. But which way am I going? And which way are you going? And that's the question today. Which way are you headed? Amen.
You've been listening to a sermon by Reverend Stephen Carnahan, pastor of High Street Congregational Church in Auburn, Maine. If you feel inspired by what you hear, we invite you to join us in person for worship services every Sunday morning, beginning at 10 o'clock. Of course, you can always listen to Steve's sermons on the web. New sermons are posted every Monday by midday. Please take a moment to explore this website for more information about our church, or visit our Facebook page at High Street Congregational Church, UCC. We hope that God's presence will be known to you every hour of every day, and that God's blessings will rest upon you now and always. See you next week.